This is the Mets POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Who needs hits? Pair of sac flies, and the New York Mets take the opener of this series against the Chicago White Sox 2-1. It felt like another one of those days where the Mets offense was going to be the story. They do just enough to pick up a win to keep the ball rolling. Welcome into the Mets POSTCAST here, Locked On Mets YouTube channel, Locked On Mets podcast feed. I'm your POSTCAST host, Chris Schubert, here with you after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. It's good to be back. Missed you all. Missed talking about these games, especially with the weekend that we just had, taking 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. But we are back into the swing of things, and we have a victory to break down here for the New York Mets. And we'll waste a little time. We'll jump right into it because even though for the first 7 innings, this was probably frustrating, you probably wanted to rip your hair out, you were annoyed, disappointed in this offense, you probably knew how this game was going to end.
This is what you'll be talking about.
There's a reason why the White Sox are 17-37. It's because they allow games like this to happen to them. And I know the Mets offense was pretty frustrating. Going into the 9th inning, they were 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. I think it was 8 men in total left on base. They ended the day 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position and 10 men left on base. So they didn't really clean it up at any point. It was a rough day all across the board. But the Chicago White Sox lose games and they give away games. I think they have 19 blown leads at this point because they don't get the insurance runs. They don't tack on, and their bullpen is suspect. And the Mets, the longer this game went, and the longer this game stayed 1-0, and the more jams that the Mets bullpen put themselves in and out of throughout the course of this game, at least for me, the confidence grew that they were going to have an opportunity late in this game to tie it up. You've just felt like with the way Chicago has been playing all year, that they were playing with fire, keeping that game at 1-0 and never getting that second or third run across. If they made it 2-0, if they made it 3-0, I don't think we're having this conversation about a Mets walk-off victory. They didn't have the bats today. I know they had 7 hits. The timely hits were missing. The hitting with runners in scoring position were missing. They won this game on 2 sac flies. So it's not even like they got the big hit to win them the game. They got big hits to put guys into scoring position, but it was sacrifice flies that brought in the 2 runs. And so the White Sox allowed the Mets to hang around. And when you are a good baseball team like the New York Mets are, even on a day when you are struggling, even on a day when not everything is clicking on the hitting side, you find a way to win. We've mentioned at times throughout the season the grittiness that this team showed. Doesn't this feel like the way the Pirates series started, where the Mets had that grittiness in those first 2 games? That's exactly what they showed here today because it's a golden chance here. You just took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. You've got 6 games, 5 more after today with the White Sox and the Rockies, 2 of the worst teams in baseball. There's no excuses. There's no excuses to not come out of this with a victory, and the Mets did not leave any excuse today. They found a way to win the game. And who would have expected that this was going to be the Adrian Houser revenge game? Old friend Adrian Houser, 6 shutout innings, 6 strikeouts, only allowed 3 hits and 1 walk, and he had the Mets all sorts of confused in this game. The Mets were unable to really get any significant momentum going against him. And I see somebody in the live YouTube chat saying that Houser looked like Tom Seaver, like peak Jacob deGrom out there against this Mets lineup. That's not how I remember Adrian Houser the last time he was out there pitching for the New York Mets. And so didn't have the Adrian Houser revenge game on my bingo card. You knew it was a possibility when you saw the pitching line today, but boy, did not anticipate that. But credit to the Mets for just sticking in this one. And we say it all the time. I'd rather you win ugly than lose pretty. I'd rather you win a game like this than lose a game where your offense puts up 7 or 8 runs and you're playing a back and forth affair and you lose 9-8, right? That's no fun, right? You feel good about your offense. You feel good about Juan Soto coming through with a big hit or Lindor hitting a big home run, but you lose the game. I will take wins like this any day of the week. You take them, you don't apologize for them, you stick them in your back pocket, and you keep setting the pace. You keep setting the pace for the rest of the National League. You let everybody know we are here and we are a force to be reckoned with, even when we aren't playing our best ball. So against a team like this today in the Chicago White Sox, it should probably look better. You should probably have more runs on the board. You probably shouldn't let it come down to 2 sacrifice flies in the 8th and 9th inning when you're down to your final 6 outs. It shouldn't come to that with this team, with this talent against this opponent, but you take it. A win is a win, and you stick it in your back pocket. And yes, as pointed out in the YouTube chat, 2 sac flies, didn't even get hits to win the game. The 9th inning, the big story here for the Mets, Tyrone Taylor leads off with a double that sets everything into motion. The Mets then work the bases loaded, and it's Francisco Lindor with the bases loaded, no out, hits a ball to the deep part of the ballpark there in right field, deep enough to score Tyrone Taylor and walk things off for the New York Mets. I believe it is Lindor's 3rd walk-off RBI of the season. I believe that makes it 5 walk-off wins for the Mets, and they have played now 20 one-run games this season, and I believe with the win today, that moves their record to 12-8. You don't want to make a living off of one-run games because one year you can have a great record, and then the next year, the bad luck, the bad bounces go your way. But winning these one-run games shows that when these clutch moments appear, when these clutch situations are there, the Mets, more often than not, even though it doesn't feel like it, can't tell you how many postcasts we've done where we're frustrated with this offense, this team finds ways to get enough runs across the board. It was a different lineup construction today for the New York Mets. Brendan Nimmo got into the 2-hole, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso in their respective spots. It was Young and Beatty hitting 5 and 6, the 2 lefties in there. And you just see a team, you see a manager right now that is trying to mix things up. I don't love how much he's mixing things up. I don't love that Beatty was hitting behind Young. I would have flipped that. Beatty's the bat that you trust a little more. I want them to find a lineup that settles here at some point where you can just let guys get comfortable. And they've had a different 2-hitter a lot recently. Vientos has had some run there. Marte's had some run there. Nimmo got run there today. You do them all a disservice by constantly shuffling them around and not allowing them to settle. So want to see them get to that place. Requires the offense to gain some confidence and to start getting some momentum before I think you can settle on what a lineup can look like on a regular basis right now. But the Mets win 2-1. We will talk about how important this game was to keep the ball rolling after what you did against the Dodgers, and we will talk about continuing to be the bright spot, the North Star for this team as this group goes, the entire team goes. The New York Mets bullpen continues to be absolutely sensational, and it was that once again. So we will get to all of that here on the other side. FanDuel, the NBA playoffs are in full swing every night, delivering highlight-worthy performances. How about that 20-point comeback by the other team in blue and orange last night to keep their postseason hopes alive? The major momentum shifts. You don't think that was a momentum shift for the Knicks? And can't miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Perhaps you want to get in ahead of Game 4, ahead of the Knicks trying to force this series back to New York all square. FanDuel is going to be the place. If you're new, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on the Mets Postcast, Locked On Mets YouTube channel, Locked On Mets podcast feed. I appreciate all the compliments for the haircut. It does feel a little weird not having the ball cap on. I try to rock the Mets hat every once in a while, mostly every day. I got my City Connect hat and then the spring training hat from this year. But you know, new haircut. You don't want the hat hair, so we're showing it off a little bit today. I don't know if we'll go back to the Mets caps tomorrow, but the Mets pick up another victory in a one-run game, now 12-8 in one-run games this season. And the reason why they can boast that record, and the reason why I think we should all feel confident in these one-run games, is this bullpen continues to be absolutely amazing. And it's the same names usually, but today, let's do some math. Jose Butto comes in 2/3 of an inning pitch, does not allow a run. Huascar Brazoban, who is probably the most trustworthy reliever, him and Edwin Diaz. I think you can make a case with either one of those guys. Huascar Brazoban comes in, gets 4 outs, an inning and a third. Castillo comes in, gets an out to help get Brazoban out of a jam. And then Edwin Diaz pitches a scoreless 9th inning. Some walks from the bullpen. Each of those relievers that came in did allow a free pass. So obviously want to clean that stuff up. You don't want to work yourself in. And they certainly put the White Sox into some run scoring situations. The Mets definitely put themselves into some jams. Buteau came in and had to get out of a bases loaded jam that not by his design. Clay Holmes put him into that, but he worked out of that. Brazelban had to work out of some trouble. Castillo had to work out of some trouble. Diaz, like I said, had that walk to put some runners on. So the 4 walks you'd like to clean up. But you have 3 1/3 scoreless innings from the bullpen. And listen, ideally, you want 20 outs from your starter so that you can only ask for 7 outs from your bullpen. And yesterday, they used Reed Garrett, Stanek. They had to give Edwin Diaz a day off, so those guys probably unavailable today. Wanted to try to avoid them if you could. Guys like Buteau, Brazelban, Castillo hadn't worked in a couple of days, so you wanted to give those guys a chance, even though it was a game that you were trailing. You wanted to keep the lead close. And shout out to the Mets, because it doesn't matter who comes in when that door swings open right now. It feels like everybody is just firing on all cylinders. Max Kranick's been great. Brazelban's been an unsung hero. Diaz has been really good. Castillo, a guy that they traded for from Arizona who wasn't pitching well over there, has been really good since coming over here. So credit to the Mets, credit to the pitching staff, credit to Jeremy Hefner, credit to the pitching lab, credit to this entire organization for what they seem to be able to do with this pitching. And we'll talk about Clay Holmes here as well. Don't want to let that fall on deaf ears. 5 2/3, the 1 earned run. Did have the 3 walks, and it was in the 4th, 5th, and 6th that he got himself into trouble. In the 4th and the 5th, got himself out of that trouble. In the 6th inning, had to walk off the mound before he was able to get out of that inning. But another solid start from Clay Holmes. 1 run over the 5 2/3. Buteau gets him out of the jam there in the 6th. And the Mets then get to play this game where even though the White Sox were leading this game, I think all the pressure's on the White Sox. They're the team that's won 17 games all season. They're the team that has blown more leads than almost anybody in the game of baseball. They're the team that constantly reinvents new ways to lose games right now. And they did it again today. They did it again today, allowing a sacrifice fly in the 8th inning by Juan Soto. Probably would have loved a home run there just to make it a little bit easier on ourselves, but good to see Soto come through in that spot in the 8th. Alvarez singles to get things started in the 8th. They then pinch run for Alvarez with Luis Angel Acuna. And then you very quickly see how important Luis Angel Acuna is to this team, because Nimmo singles. And the moment you see that ball and you see where it was hit and you see how slow it was hit, you knew Luis Angel Acuna was going to be standing on third base. He was. That speed comes into play because then Soto can hit the sacrifice fly to left field. Acuna scores. They overthrow the cutoff man, which allowed Nimmo to go to second base. You thought that might have been a chance there to get that next run in to take the lead. It was for naught. And then it was the 9th inning. It all got started by Tyrone Taylor with a double that Luis Robert almost stole from him. They intentionally walked McNeil. Luis Torrens continues to just be awesome in these big spots. He's like 7 for 23 with runners in scoring position this season. Before tonight, picks up another hit in this game today, loads the bases up. Lindor hits the sacrifice fly, and here we are talking about a New York Mets team that is now 20-6 at home. It's not a mistake. That's not a misprint. 20-6 at home this season, 33-21, and they just keep on rolling. And this is I wanted to start with this, but the way the game script kind of played out with the 2 sacrifice flies and the walk-off win, you have to start there. Beating the Dodgers and taking 2 out of 3 on its own is really, really important and really, really special. But what allows it to mean even more is to keep that ball rolling into these types of series when you're playing teams like the White Sox, like the Rockies. Because now, by winning the last 2 of that series against the Dodgers, by now being on a 3-game winning streak after winning tonight, with the way the White Sox have been playing this season, with the way the Rockies have been playing this season, it's not out of the realm of possibility to start dreaming about a team that can go on a 6, 7, 8-game winning streak here. I mean, 2 sweeps of these 2 teams absolutely on the table, because Mets didn't have their best offensive day today, still found a way to win. And they're going to be able to do that against the White Sox. The same thing we talked about in the Pirates series a couple of weeks ago. You can get away with this against the Pirates. Can't get away with it against the Phillies, Dodgers. Can't get away against those teams. You can get away with it here against teams like the White Sox, and Mets certainly did today. So, yeah, I start dreaming of another sweep here by the White Sox, or against the White Sox, I should say, and a extended winning streak starting up for this team, and they will certainly try to do that again tomorrow. Tyler McGill, last time out looked solid against the Boston Red Sox. He will look to parlay that into some success here against the Chicago White Sox. It is Shane Smith on the mound for the White Sox, and we will be right back here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed, to break it all down. So if you are new here, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live here after each and every Met game throughout the course of the season. Missed you guys. Excited to be back here breaking down some Mets baseball here, especially when it is a Mets victory, especially when it is now 3 wins in a row. And this team is, again, it's not pretty. It was frustrating through the first 7 innings, but there's a reason why you got to get all 27 outs, and the Mets made sure that the White Sox did not get all 27 outs today as they walked it off and pick up a win 2-1. Appreciate all of you being here. We will be back tomorrow to break down the Mets in the second game of this series against the Chicago White Sox. It is a Memorial Day victory for the New York Mets. It is a walk-off victory for the New York Mets as they defeat the White Sox 2-1 to extend their winning streak to 3. Have a good one, everybody.